Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Elizabeth, and many of you know that I used to be a software test engineer, and now I am currently a teacher. And so today I wanted to talk about my experience with being a teacher and then being a software engineer. And so I actually made more money as a teacher when I started out and now than I did as a software engineer. Now, if I would have stayed in the job, I would have made a lot more money as a software engineer, but I want to talk about the pros and cons. Some people were talking about trying to find the right job, and I know finding the right job can be tough. And so I'm going to have some more tips and do a little series on this, on how to find the right job, what things to think about. But let's go ahead and get into what are the differences between teaching and software engineering. What are the things that I noticed versus the pay, versus the time off, versus the flexibility and things of that nature. Let's get into it. I hope it's helpful to you. All right, so we're going to talk about a variety of categories on the pros and cons, because it's not just about the salary, but we will talk about the salary and the money, because I know that does matter. But what about your time off? What about if you're working at your job? Like, I had to sit at a desk and I couldn't move. I know things have changed, but that was really hard to just sit at my desk all day and not really have breaks or anything. Who you're working with, what you're working on. Are you more introverted, extroverted? So we'll get into that. But let's first talk about the pay. All right, so as a software engineer, I made $40,000 a year to start. And so in contrast with teaching, I made about $46,500 a year to start. So I made more as a teacher with my starting salary. Now, the key is I've been working for about 8 years. If I would have been a entry-level software engineer, which I was, and stayed with it, even though I started at $40,000, I could have made about $149,599 if I would have been a software engineer with 8 years of experience. That is the average. I could make more, I could make a little less, but that's a lot more than what I currently make now as a teacher. So it's a long game. I didn't have my degree in engineering. I also depends on the company you work for. This really is key. Depends on your skills, and it just depends on your negotiation skills as well. I know I tried to negotiate a little bit, but they were flat at the $40,000 a year. And this can be important. So when you are trying to negotiate your salary or starting, yes, you just want a job and you're like, I'm ready for a job, but don't be afraid to negotiate, because that's going to set up your pay jumps for the rest of your career. Of course, it doesn't mean that if I start at 40,000, I'm just going to get to 50,000 and 60. I'm never going to be able to get to 150, 200,000, 250,000. That's not necessarily true, but know your value and don't be afraid to negotiate a little bit. And maybe we could talk more about what the professionals say about negotiation, so you can get a better starting salary. And so with teaching, this was a little bit different, because I eventually, if I am in teaching and I teach for about 8 years, where I work, you can be making $90,000 plus. Now that isn't your starting salary or the base. Typically that would be also with some extra things that you do as a teacher. So there's ways that I get paid during the school year that makes me an extra $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in addition to my regular salary. Additionally, a lot of people tutor or they coach, and depending on the county or the school system that you're in, they will pay you. And so that is very interesting and something to consider. And so that's a little bit different, having the $90,000-ish versus $150,000 if for the same amount of experience. So yes, with software engineering, you'll probably make more money, but there are other things to consider. So let's go ahead and talk about those. All right, so the next thing is the work style. Like, what is the actual work? And so I love a challenge. I love learning new things. And so that's one reason I really liked coding. I also am fairly introverted. And so working at a desk, that was new to me, and being in a cubicle, but getting to work and kind of do my own research and think and do what I needed to do and provide for my team, I really did like that. Eventually, I didn't exactly like what the actual work was. I liked working by myself. I liked that autonomy. I liked that independence. I really liked just working out by myself, and then I'd go work with my team as well. But it just wasn't as exciting or interesting, or that human interaction or seeing that impact. I know one of my coworkers talked about, because I had a lot of experience with helping people, working for nonprofits and creating these projects and organizations and food banks and things that I used to do. And she was like, you know what? I really think we are helping people, which we were. We worked for the Department of Health and Human Services, and we're helping dialysis patients. And we were in charge of that system and tracking all the patients and creating the user interface and testing it and things of that nature. But it wasn't the same. Like with teaching, I get to actually go help students physically. I get to see them. I get to learn their names. I get to learn about them, and I get to try to help them. Of course, you're not going to connect with every student, and not every student is going to love you, but you get to see the uniqueness of kids and try to help them. And depending on what you teach or just what your teaching philosophy is, you get to try to support them in their life, teach them information, help support them along the way. And to me, that is my favorite part about teaching, is getting to work one-on-one with the kids and really trying to help make a difference in their life, making their school experience better and helping them see the potential that they have in themselves and making things fun. Right, so the work environments are very different. And so, for example, when I was in my software job, and this might be different for other jobs, and especially now with COVID, a lot of people get to work remotely from home. We worked remotely from home, and we had the VPN set up and things of that nature when we had a big snow day. But this was before COVID and before it was more normal to work from home. And so that might change your mind if you can work from home and you have a little bit more flexibility, because that's one thing I didn't like about software engineering, was where I had to sit at my desk, at my cubicle all day. And I'm a very active person. I also do better. I like doing deep work and being focused for a few hours, but then I need to move. I need to get up. I think we liked that during COVID. A lot of teachers said that they liked that, being able to work and focus on their students, do a little planning, go for a walk, go for a quick run, come back, teach another session. There was a little bit more balance. But when I was at my cubicle, I had to sit. Some people, they wouldn't get in trouble if they stood up and just talked to their teammates for a long time. But if I were to go, hey, can I go take a quick walk? Then that was kind of looked down upon, at least in the company that I was at. I would use my lunch break to go for a walk, because otherwise I would never get to get up and move really throughout the day, because we're supposed to be focused on working, which I totally get. They're paying us to work. But I know there are companies, like we would go travel. That's another part of the job. We would have to travel and meet with other teams and developers and other companies and organizations. And so we'd have to travel up to Maryland a few hours. And so that was kind of fun, getting to go out. Eventually, and where I am right now, I wouldn't want to do a ton of traveling. But we had to learn, or we had lunch and learns and things of that nature. But they had a huge gym at some of those bigger companies. And so we were a big company, but in a different location that was closer to my home. So we didn't have this huge office. And so I know a lot of companies do encourage their employees to work out and to exercise and to take breaks, and don't penalize them, because they know it actually helps them to be happier, healthier, and perform better. So that was one thing that I really didn't love about that. With teaching, it's very different. It depends on you and it depends on your school. And so you have a certain amount of classes that you teach. You also have planning periods or prep periods. And so you can use those however you like. But typically you're using those to grade, to plan, to prepare your lessons, because, right? Like, I just showed up to class when I was a student thinking that, and I didn't think about, okay, when did my teachers plan that? When did they print out the papers? When did they set up those PowerPoints or those experiments or those things that they do? That is during planning period, right? And so typically a lot of teachers do take work home, but you could set that boundary with yourself and make sure you just get things done in a planning period. It depends on the type of teacher you are, the type of person you are, the stage you are in your life. It depends on your school system. It depends on your subject. So it really depends on what work you take home, but typically you have that time. So there's a little more flexibility. You're standing up to teaching, you're walking around helping your students, you're sitting down and grading. Some schools even will let you go on, if you have all your work done or something, you could go take a quick walk and then come back in and focus, or you can go socialize with your peers and collaborate more. And so there's a little bit more flexibility where you're up and down depending on your job. And so you're not just sitting all day, which I really enjoyed. With software engineering, we had Agile frameworks. And so we had different projects that we were on for like 3 months or 6 months, and I would rotate different teams. And so you have kind of a set product mission for a certain amount of time, the Agile framework, and you work through that. And so that is something that we were on. With teaching, you have a specific curriculum and SOL standards that you have to meet throughout the year. And then you create a content calendar where you go through, and throughout each week that you're in school, you go over different things and hit the targets that you're supposed to teach. And you repeat that. So if you teach the same subject, if you teach 6th grade, you're going to teach English, you're going to go over that every single year. So there's some familiarity there. You can update things, change things. You're going to have different students, there's different challenges there. But with software engineering, like, you go through different projects. And so you're doing some of the same things, but you also are going through different projects. And they did want you to learn both of these things with teaching and with engineering. We had lunch and learns, and with teaching, you have professional development where you're supposed to improve on the job, which a lot of companies and organizations have. Okay, I wanted to say something else about the pay with teaching. And so with engineering as well, if you want to make more money, research certain companies. So certain companies pay more. And so that's with engineering, also different locations, right? And so if you go to a different location or a certain company, also if you have a certain amount of experience, or a certain type of skill, that's how you're going to get paid more. With teaching, you have to pass certain exams, you have to have all these different licensures and be able to be able to teach. But to get paid, you get paid more if you go to a certain county. That is how I was able to get a big pay increase, is because, and make about $80,000, because I was able to go to a county that's closer to the city. So that's one tip, is to go, if you're in teaching or in any job, go closer to a city. You're probably going to get paid more because the cost of living is higher too. So that's where a lot of people work remotely, or they drive and commute to make a little bit more money. But that is going to be helpful to you. You also make more money depending on if you have a master's degree, a doctorate degree, or just a bachelor's degree. So if you have a bachelor's degree, you get a certain amount of money. If you have a master's degree, you get a certain amount of money. Doctorate, you get more money. But you start at a step. So you would start, if I'm a teacher with 0 years of experience, I would start at a certain level, and then the next year and the next year and the next year, like, you would move up and get little increases. And so you're not going to get these huge pay jumps if you stay in the same county. We did have like a 30% pay increase in a county over the COVID period, which was awesome. Plus the extra from moving to another county, that was a big increase as well. And so that is something to think about. There's options and opportunities with teaching as well to make more money during the day. That's how I make a little bit more. There's other things depending on the county that you work in that they'll pay you. Some things, and some counties just expect you to do the extra tasks, but a lot of counties will pay you. There's other opportunities outside of school, like tutoring, coaching, being an athletic director, things of that nature. If you want to be an administrator, same thing with engineering. If you want to level up or be a manager or manage the team, you're going to get paid more depending on the role you have. And so there's always options to make more money within your specific job, but going to a different employer or a county can help you to make more in time. And lastly, with the salaries, you actually make, I was going to do a video on teaching and salaries and all that type of stuff, but I'll give a little bit here, is that if you are an elementary school teacher, a middle school teacher, or a high school teacher, you make the same amount of money. If you're a first year teacher and you have a master's degree and you teach whatever subject, you make the same amount of money. So math teachers literally make the same amount of money as a PE teacher, right? And so it was funny. There was a quote or something that had said, PE teachers are, who's the smartest like teacher in the school? And then someone said that PE teachers were because they get to play all day and play sports all day and they make the same amount of money, which is just a joke. Because if you don't like PE and there's a lot of kids and stuff, then that's not going to feel good for you. Like if you're a science teacher, you'll probably feel good in science, but it's just kind of funny because you don't have the SOLs, but they're all are trade-offs. If you teach PE, you have a ton of kids, you're on your feet all day, you're doing sports. If you are in math, you're gonna have the SOLs and those focus, but it's very structured, etc. And so there's different types of personalities and different types of teachers. But I thought that was interesting because I didn't know that when I was first starting out, that it didn't matter what subject I chose, I'd get paid the same. So flexibility, I talked about this a little bit. There's a little bit more flexibility with teaching, I feel like, with you have the job that you need to do, but there's a little bit of flexibility and wiggle room around there as long as you get the job done. With software engineering, if you are working in an office and depending on your company, you probably are going to have to be at your desk and that's what you're doing. But now there's a lot more opportunity with COVID. It opened up like working remotely. And so a lot of people really enjoy that because then you don't feel as pressured. If you take a few minutes of a break, you don't feel like you're letting the company down or the company thinks you don't work hard or you don't care. It's like, no, I'm just taking a minute for my mind and so that I can work hard and focus. And so I really think that it's the work that you do, it's the pay that you get, the flexibility. And so with engineering, you do make more money in the long term, especially depending on the types of engineering. I'll put a list of the salaries and what the salaries are, the average for different types of engineering. I know a ton of engineers, and I went to school with a lot of engineers, went to Virginia Tech for my undergraduate degree of my bachelor's of science, and know a ton of engineers. And so there's sonar engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical, aerospace engineering, a lot of different types, and really smart kids. And there's a lot of opportunities in engineering. And so I'll put that on the screen here. But the next thing is the freedom and like the time off. And so I talk about this a lot and it gives me a lot of perspective because as a teacher, you get summers off, which maybe is 2 months, not just 2 weeks, 2 months, 2.5 months, somewhere around there. You also get to have major government holidays off, right? Any of those major government holidays, and depending on your school district, you're going to get more holidays because you might have people from more places and be more ethnically diverse, and so they celebrate a few of the extra holidays. You also get time off at Thanksgiving. You get the 3 days off plus 2 days, and that's just part of the deal. You get 2 weeks off at Christmas. You get a week off at spring break. Plus, a lot of your weeks are 4-day weeks, right? And my contract hours are 7-hour days. 7-hour days. And so depending on your commute or things of that nature, that is a pretty nice schedule. Plus, you get paid time off for personal days, plus you get sick days. So there's a lot of time, and they're very understanding in the teaching world. Like once I had my son and then he ended up getting sick or having things that we had to go to, but they're very understanding of your family and of your personal life, which I really, really liked. With software engineering and just with my company, and I had 0 years of experience, so I had to build up that time off. And so of course, a lot of people, if you're in it, you're going to build more time up, but it was a big deal to take 2 days off at Christmas. I had like 5, 6, 7 days, if that, to take off. And so maybe if you're young or if you want to get into engineering, make sure you negotiate that. And I'm sure at other companies you can get more. But for me, like, if you go to school, which all of us do, you're used to that school schedule. So that's something that is kind of cool about teaching, is that you're on that school schedule. Instead, when you go to the real world, you're like, wait, I don't get a summer? Wait, I don't get like some of these holidays or a snow day? Wait, what? And so just something to think about, because it's your lifestyle. And that's where I'm going to do a video on asking about trying to help you to really figure out what job do you actually want to do, that you do every single day. Like not 365 days a year, but unless you choose to, but a lot. Or can you sit all day? Okay, for 1 day, but can you do it for 2 days, a week, 2 years, 3 years, right? And so just starting to think about some of those things, because it's not just about the pay. You have to factor that in. Like I do factor that in if you make $80,000 as a teacher, but then you get like 3-4 months off, what is that worth? What is that worth to you? So just something to think about. All right, so there's probably more things to talk about, but I wanted to share this experience. I thought it was interesting, and some people talked to me about it before. And honestly, I didn't know very much about some of these things or about how much teachers make. And so I can do a video on that if you're interested in more information on teaching and their salaries and the inside scoop on that. Let me know what you think. If you like videos like this, if this was helpful to you, feel free to like, subscribe, and share with a friend for more. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for being here. You've got this. Keep learning, working, and growing. I know you can create the life that you want, and I believe in you. Bye, guys. You got this.